Shiva Nachlis Yisrael Yitzhak, and give us the honor to give us a Mussar smooth, and it should be a schus for the family of Carol and Carol and Albert Horn and the family. They should all have Hatzlach in all their ways and grow in Torah and mitzvahs and serve Hashem for our profession. Yeah, please. Take out the glasses here.
I'm used to need these, you know? That's life. That's life.
Oh,
No,
Things.
so that's it.
I gotta put in a disclaimer here. I don't remember what I said in the past and what I didn't say, so if I repeat myself, just humor me, right? Pretend it's new. So I want to talk about something that it's a word I haven't heard in the context of the news until I don't know, the last 5-6 years or so. We used to have reporters, and reporters will like report stuff. Now they talk about narrative. Narrative has become like a big word. People try and create narratives, which is essentially creating maybe a manufactured perception of what happens around you. Right? You see things happening, and people make assumptions. Right? We're supposed to build narratives for ourselves. The chiyuv to malamed a person lekapsus. What does that mean? I saw a series of facts. Now, how do I perceive what's behind them? How did they come to be? What led to their development? So, there's a natural assumption that probably he just did it because he's a jerk. But I have a chiyuv to malamed zchus, and that requires some creative thinking and creating a narrative within myself, a different explanation for how those facts came to be that casts a less negative light on the person involved. Right? So, we like to think that we're in charge of how we see and understand and process how we perceive things. So, we find Paro is, as Moshe had been warned, Paro is somewhat reluctant to let Klal Yisrael leave, but it becomes more and more difficult to hold that position. He finds he's faced with some very real threats, which eventually his advisors tell him are not threats that he's able to match or to contend with, and he finds himself in need, to some degree, maybe making some concessions, maybe doing some bargaining. So Moshe Rabbeinu warns Paro about the next makkah. He refused to send him. Maybe mochar arbe bigvulecha, and it's going to be pretty bad. It's going to eat these arbe, these locusts. They're going to eat everything. It's going to be a real mess. Your houses are going to be filled with them, and all of your servants' houses. It's something you've never seen before in your life. And he left. He stormed out after issuing his threat. And he stormed out. So Paro's people, you want to be a king, you can't just, unless you have the resources, which there are limits. You can't just reject everything. You have a popular uprising otherwise. So his people turn to him and they say, how long are you going to let these people going to be a problem for us? Just forget it. Shalach is vanoshim, Gav is Hashem lekehim. Let them send them out. Let them worship their God. We're going to lose everything. It's not worth it. So Paro capitulated by Yushav as Moshe was Aaron and Paro, and he said, "Okay, who are we talking about? Who do you want to send with you?" Vayomer Moshe, same thing I've said all along, nothing changed. We're going to go with our youth, with our elderly, with our sons, with our daughters, with all of our flock, with all our possessions. Ki Chag Hashem Lon. We have a special occasion. It should be as you say, basically. And Hashem should be with you. Kasher shalach eschem v'tapchem. Re'u ki ro'o neged penechem. Now this is a little bit of a mysterious passage. What does that mean? Re'u ki ro'o neged penechem. Unclus translates chazoi, should see, are a bisho de'atun svirin leme'evad, the bad thing that you're thinking about doing, lakavel apechoin listachor, is going to turn back on you. Ramban learns that to mean the bad thing that you're doing by taking people, by taking your children with you, as we said, take a look at Ramban, the bad thing that you're doing, the fact that you're taking them with you, that gives away apechon listachor. That turns back around on you, meaning it shows me what your real intention is. What you're doing indicates that you're trying to do something nasty, you're trying to run away. That's how he learns those. Ra neged penechem. The ra that you're engaging in, it sort of boomerangs back. It reveals your true motives. It shows what you're trying to do. You're trying to run away. Rabbeinu Bechai explains it a little bit differently. And he quotes Chazal to that effect. Beur hakosav, again, same pasuk. Re'u ki ro neged penechem. Beur hakosav kitargumo. Bisha de'atun svirin lemevad. A little bit of a different flavor. He quotes the same onklus. The bad thing that you're thinking about doing, lekavel apecha nestachra, koloimar, meusedes hi shetoshuv neged penechem. The bad thing that you're doing now, meusedes hi, it is ultimately in the future, tisav neged penechem, will turn around and get you. You're trying to do something bad, and the bad thing that you're going to do, you think you're being clever, you're doing something terrible, you're going to see it's not going to work out well. It's going to end up biting you. It's going to turn around and attack you. Yalechem tachzor, it's going to come back and get you. Umiloshem v'loy tisav nachlo, shtagum loy tistacher, bringing a loshen raya, but it means it's going to turn around and get you. Chenom razal, derech habachurim v'azikenim lizboyach. Maybe the way of young people and older people to bring korbanos. Shema haktanim vehatav darkol nizboyach was the way of little children and babies to bring korbanos. No. Mi shomer dover zeh, somebody who says this, I want to take my babies along with me, I want to take my little children with me. Ein daito elo livroyach. Very clearly, he's giving away the show. He wants to run away. So therefore, Re'u, you should see, that bad thing that you're trying to do, you have in your mind to run away. It'll turn around towards you. You're not going to be able to leave here. There is divine justice in the world. You're doing a nasty, malicious, evil thing, and it's going to turn around and get you, and you're going to be punished measure for measure. Is that wild?
That's wild. That's harrowing and Mussar.
But what's Klal Yisrael doing? Let me get this straight. We've been subject to harsh servitude for 220 years, 250 years, whatever the cheshbon is, how many years? For 200 something years. You've given men women's work and women men's work. You've destroyed our families. You've taken our babies and thrown them in the Nile, drowned them, and then bathed in their blood. And now we helplessly and hopelessly trying to come up with a way just to get out. And we're so evil that you're confident there's going to be divine retribution, measure for measure, because of our evil behavior.
That sounds very.
So it's an unbelievable thing, the Koach HaNegia. I approach a situation and I have a particular perspective on that situation. How I then take that perspective and run with it. How I'm able to recreate, realign the facts in a way that supports my position. You would think an objective observer would look at the situation, see Klal Yisrael enduring what they have endured for generations, systematically being destroyed, tormented, tortured, used, capitalized upon, and then murdered. And it would be legitimate. They're not going to war. They're not killing anybody, making mass riots in the street. They're not doing anything like that. They're trying to sneak away. That's evil. Divine retribution, measure of it. Ruchnistic concept, very lofty Ruchnistic concepts he employs to say how you're going to get defeated. It's not, God's going to not stand up for this kind of stuff. He's going to get you back. Unbelievable.
Right.
But that's how a person is wired. I have a certain perspective. It's hard for me to leave that perspective. I find when Bnei Yaakov went down to Mitzrayim in the first place, after Yosef revealed himself, told him who he was, so he advised his brothers. I'm going to go and inform Paro. I mean, he knows you're here. The Pasuk said earlier in Vayigash, at the beginning of it, early in the parsha. Now that you've been commanded, this is what you have to do when you've been commanded. Paro says this, you've been commanded, so this is what you should go take wagons and send them to your father, that they should all come. Because Paro knew that Yosef wouldn't use communal funds for his own purposes. If Paro didn't order him, I insist you take wagons on the kingdom's dime and bring your family here, he never would have done it. So Paro knows full well that they're here. He funded their trip. And he ordered that the trip take place, because otherwise Yosef wouldn't have listened. He knows they're there. But formality demands, now you're here, so it's proper. I'm the viceroy. I need to go to Paro and let him know that you're here. They've arrived safely. Bo Eloi, they come to me. And I'm going to tell them that these people are shepherds. That's what they did. And they brought all their livestock with them. So he says to his brothers, I'm telling you, if Paro will call you, which he certainly will, he can call you and interview you and meet you. We'll have a whole meeting and a formal dinner and dignitaries and everything, whatever. He's going to call you, ask him he's going to ask you, what do you do for a living? We've always been shepherds. That's what you should tell him. Now, why should I tell him that? That way, he's going to say, I have a perfect place for you. Quiet, set aside, your flock won't be threatened, they'll have plenty to graze. He's going to send you to Goshen. Now, why is he going to send you to Goshen? He's going to say it's good for you, but also it's good for him because he doesn't want to be near you. Why? Anybody who's a shepherd is an abomination in Mitzrayim. Shepherds are very bad things. So it's going to be good for him. He's going to send you far away. He'll send you to Goshen. It's good for you. You'll be able to have a separate existence. You won't be mixed in. Always mention, when Avimelech and Paro, many years earlier, did similar things. They both saw a pretty girl and stole her, and then found out she was married to somebody, and after a little bit of pressure, gave her back. And Avimelech says, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean any harm, I had no idea. Settle yourself anywhere you want, please, the land is yours. You stay as long as you like, live wherever you want, you'll be our honored guest. And Paro says, I'm so sorry, I had no idea, the land is closed to you, please leave. Why is that different? Rashi points out, because, Mitzrayim was Tufei Zima. They were not, they didn't have, they weren't of high moral fiber, high moral character. And so Paro felt pretty confident that he could not assure Sarah's safety, or Rivka's safety, and Sarah's safety in Mitzrayim. They had to leave. They couldn't stay. Right? That's Mitzrayim. He's gonna say, all right, it'll be good for you. You have your own separate place. You'll be off in Gush. You're not gonna be mixed in with, some of the influences around you in a corrupt society. It was very good. But the Mitzrayim, why do the Mitzrayim want you over there and not here? They're gonna do it because they don't want you near them. Because to them, a royal sign is an abomination, a bad thing. Why is a royal sign a bad thing? Rashi says, he explains, Lefi shehem lohem Elohus, because they are to them a deity. In other words, the sheep are a deity to the Mitzrayim. That's how Rashi explains it, which sounds kind of the opposite of rationality. If they are your deity, and these are the guardians of your deity, so you would think that they would be highly respected.
Right.
They would be influential people. They have the keys to the inner sanctum. Those are extraordinary, special individuals. Right? We have Kohanim. Kohanim are special guys. Even Leviim, they serve the Kohanim. It's already a step up. Right? They have the Medrash brings a Medrash in Vayikra brings a moshel. When Hillel Azokin was he would depart from his Talmud and he would say, I'm going to do a mitzvah. What mitzvah are you going to do? I'm going to the bathhouse. I'm going to take a bath. And he asked him, why is that a mitzvah? So he gave as a mashal, if you have a king, and then in the museum there's a statue of the king or a bust of the king. So there's somebody whose job it is to keep it in good shape, to take care of it, to dust it, to clean it. And that guy, he travels in the highest social circles. He's viewed as a very special choshev guy. Right? So me, I'm taking care of it. Tell him Elohim. But the point is, you see that this is not like a Jewish thing. This is an everybody thing. You have an idol. You have something of great chashivas, and there's somebody who's charged with taking care of it, with cleaning it, with maintaining it. That's a choshev thing, not a lowly thing. Certainly not an abomination. So I don't see how Rashi's explanation helps so much here. Yes, it says they're going to send you out there because you're shepherds, and shepherds are abominations. So Sisei Chachon is bothered by that, and he explains, so why are the Royei Tzoin who take care of the Elohus, of the sheep that they worship, why are they viewed as an abomination? It says, Lefi shehem yodim sheharoim Royei Tzoin, because they, the Mitzrim, know that the Roim, those who are shepherds to the flocks, Yodin Havayosan, they know what they're really like. Lefishem Tomid Etzlan, because they're always with them. Hilkoch Yodim Shein by Mamish, and therefore the Mitzrim know, that the shepherds know, that the sheep aren't really the model of godly entities. They make a mess, and they don't behave themselves like you would imagine a godly guy would. Hilkoch soinim kol roitzan. Therefore, they hate all roitzan. Now you understand. They don't like shepherds because shepherds know the reality of sheep. Sheep is not a word. They know the reality of sheep. Wow, isn't that fascinating?
That's very interesting.
I mean, I have this belief that this Stender created the world. Boy, do I hate carpenters, because carpenters know that Stenders didn't create the world. So shouldn't that make me rethink my perspective on the godliness of Stenders rather than hating carpenters? And I got two ways I can go on that. But again, how narratives work. I have a predisposition. I assume that this is true, and I may have interest in that assumption. It could be that form of service allows of me, or even demands of me, things in which I would like to engage, and maybe it doesn't demand of me things that I would like to refrain from. Maybe, I don't know, just as the denial of a deity could allow me to steal whatever money I want, because, what's private ownership after all? It's just a social construct. There is no God. Everything is, you can do whatever you want. Right, so it's inconvenient to have a belief in some kind of a deity who makes rules, if there are rules, some of those rules I'm not gonna like. I can't, eat, drink, and be merry as I may wish to. So now I'm confronted with somebody who says, "Oh, you thought the sheep was a god. Let me tell you all about those sheep." So, and what's the reaction? I hate you. Go away. I don't want to be anywhere near you. I'm not going to break bread with you. I'm not going to communicate with you. You're a bad guy. What I do? I'm just telling you reality. But that's how it works. I want something to be a certain way. Inevitably, I will interpret facts in such a way as to support whatever it is, whatever way it is I would like things to be. So, Rabbi in Sefer Shari Tshuva, he gives a number of different lists here of important things. One of the lists he gives is a list of things that can bring a person to tshuva. Hasibas she'is'orer ha'odam bohen loshuv midrochav ha'rois him shisha. There are 6 things generally that can cause a person to awaken and reevaluate and ultimately change his behavior. So number 4, this is in the beginning of the second shar of Shari Tshuva. So it says Aderech Rabbi, Beis asher yege ha'odam b'tzoras Hashem v'yikro b'divrei hanavim v'aksuvim. When a person reads consistently with some focus, Hashem's Torah, and he reads the words of the Nevi'im and Ksuvim, v'yovim b'noyam ha'musarim v'yireh ha'azhoras ba'anoshim, and he'll understand the Mussar that they provide, and he'll see the warnings and the punishments. Yecharad ladvorim, he'll be shaken up by those things. V'yochin liboy lehetiv drochu v'malolov, and he'll prepare his heart to change his ways, to improve his behavior. V'yisratzel Hashem, so he can be desired by Hashem. Ki nishenemar ve'el ze abit el oni nechei ruach v'chorid al dvori, as the pasuk says, Hashem makes it clear, that's who I look to, that's who I value. A person who is pauper, I don't know if it means necessarily in funds, but lowly of spirit, he doesn't hold him, he's not uppity. V'chorid al dvori, and he's very, very concerned to uphold my word. That's Hashem says, that's why I value. Chen kos v'nishio. Vayikishma melech es divrei sefer haTorah vayikras begodam. You see, by Yoshiyahu, the king, he listened to the words of the Torah that the Navi read before him, and it affected him deeply. He was moved, and he tore his clothes in regret for misdeeds of the past. When Ezra nemar ki boichim kol ha'om ki shomam es divrei Torah. Ezra, a sofer, he taught them, he read the Torah to them, and it caused them also to feel remorse and regret and convicted to make changes in the future. And somebody who fails to adhere, to pay attention to the word of Hashem, yichbad pisha olav, his sin is even worse. They weren't scared and they didn't tear their clothing. They were unaffected by all the words of Hashem that they heard presented to them. A person who learns Divrei Torah and doesn't live them, it's better off for him that his fetus would have been reversed and never come out to the world, would have reversed direction and just whatever. In other words, he would have been better off not having been born. And I saw this recently, not so long ago. We talk about off the derech. Hear less talk about it now, but 5-10 years ago, big talk about off the derech problems have other problems that have taken up our attention since then. But obviously, an off-derech problem 10 years ago. You should see what was going on in the late 1880s, in pre-World War I, even World War II Europe. It was terrible. All these new ideologies were presenting themselves, and a lot of, they're very, very attractive, very compelling. So, I saw recently that people would come to Chofetz Chaim. He died in 1933. He was almost 100 years old. So he was born early 1800s. In his later life, he was known as a prominent person and a divine kind of person. People would come to him, young childless couples would come to him for a bracha to have children, and he would decline. He says that's a good thing. The world needs another Michal Shabbos. Pretty damning. So a person who learns and he's not Mekayim, Chazal sometimes didn't make a takon, or they didn't take corrective measures when they saw an Aveira taking place. They wouldn't employ corrective measures because mutav shiyu shoigigim. We view our ability to be mochiach as limited. It's not going to be received. It's not going to be adhered to. So all we're doing by telling them, since we're pretty convinced that they're not going to listen to us to stop the behavior, all we're doing is putting them on notice that what they're doing is inappropriate. So now when they do something that they shouldn't be doing, they'll be doing it in full knowledge that it's inappropriate. And that's going to require a certain hardening of the heart and a blatant disregard. And now instead of a mumah l'te'ovan, they're mumah l'achis. Better off, they should be a mumah l'te'ovan. It's not great, but what's the alternative? To tell them they're not going to listen. So here, you have a person who learns, and I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and I don't listen. That's what he's saying. That's a terrible thing. It's a more Yerushalmi in Brochus. Would have been better off not being born. I wrote my Torah was viewed by other people as a stranger. So all of this is making the point that when a person reads Torah Hashem and reads words of the Nevi'im and hears Tochacha, and hears truths that perhaps he wasn't aware of or hadn't paid attention to in the past, that can have an effect in changing his perspective. And then he concludes with one and brings up a number of psukim saying how that is the case and how if you fail to adhere, that's a big problem. It's a serious issue. And then he adds one more thing here. Last pasuk. V'nemar eicho temru chachomim anachnu v'soras Hashem itonu. Ochein hine l'sheker osa'it sheker sefer. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyah and Periches. How are we going to say we're wise people and Torah Hashem is with us when in fact the pen is lying, the scribes are lying? You're turning the pen and the scribes into liars. Torah is with us. Torah is not with you. You're ignoring it. You're not listening to it. So it's kind of interesting. Up until now, he was saying how hearing those words has a strong effect. Ignoring those words is a very bad thing, and you're held accountable for it. Now it sounds like he's making a separate point. The separate point is that l'sheker osa'it sheker sefer. Now, because you're ignoring it, so the pen is a lie, and the scribes are liars. They told you, they wrote and told you what you're supposed to be doing, and you, by ignoring it, are turning them into liars. You say the Torah is with us, but you ignore the Torah. You say, I'm fulfilling the mitzvahs. You don't fulfill the mitzvahs, so you turn them into liars. Okay, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but that seems like a little beside the point, doesn't it? The point is that you're trying to tell me things that are going to motivate me to doing tshuva. You're trying to tell me things that are going to encourage me to reevaluate and make changes. And hearing Divrei Torah and Divrei Nevi'im can do that. And if they don't, well, then there's something wrong with you. That's a bad thing. Okay. Adding like a separate point. You're going to be turning them into liars. But a person may have a tendency, again, this is along the same lines. You can see something and not notice it, not recognize it for what it's saying, not recognize the implication of that something. So yeah, it's a little bit of a separate tviyah. But the separate tviyah is, not only are you not taking it to heart and not making personal changes as you should, and you're held accountable for not making those personal changes, but there are side effects to it. When something happens, you're supposed to see it. You're supposed to recognize it. You should be walking around with your eyes open. You're not supposed to be walking around just oblivious to circumstances around you. You have an entire Shara Bechina and Zalbovas where the goal is, as you walk through life, you look at the world, you look at the nature, you look at the Priyas, and each one of them bears testimony to the wisdom of the Creator. Each item carries such depth to it, such intricate detail, and that gives you a new appreciation of the Chokhmah of Hashem was Bura them. Recognize that, expect it in the whole parak, and a whole shar on the depth and the meaning and the implications of all the messages born by each aspect of nature, of society, of every element of the Bria. And I'm expected to have my eyes open and to recognize it and to see it. In other words, this is sort of putting a point, is the flip side of the coin. When I come in and I'm not objectively observing, I have a predisposition. So I am capable of interpreting what I see along the lines of my predisposition to an extreme. I can see people being wiped off the face of the earth and trying to run for their lives, and see them as rishoyim because I want that to be the case. And if they take defensive action, that's an evil, and it's going to come around, and I'll interpret all kinds of, simona min hashamayim as working against them. I can see my own belief by the people who know best being questioned, being unearthed, being uprooted. I'm not looking objectively, and therefore I'll reflect my own predisposition into what I observe. So that's the wrong way. An expectation, just an appreciation of how far I can go in doing that. The expectation is on the contrary. You see something, you should not be oblivious to it, be aware of it, and look objectively, and be able to interpret and recognize the messages that it can deliver. And that's, there's one fear, you should be moved to action. But even before that, you should see it, you should recognize it. You fail to do so, you're turning the Bria into a liar, you're turning the Novi and the Psukim and the Seifrim and the Eight into liars. They're giving a message. Look at it, be aware of it. I would argue, and I've said it's often the first four prakim, not the first parak, but the next four prakim. What are they about? Right, the beginning of the beginning of the evolution of a person's development in the model of Rav Pinchas ben Yoyer. The first step is what? Zehirus. What's Zehirus? Be careful. But you look through the prakim, you see very clearly when he said be careful. What does that mean? Be careful. Just one thing. Be aware. Notice things. We have a natural tendency. We have dispositions. We have interests. We have negiyas, and those affect our objective judgment. Take a step back. That's all. Zehirus just means that. Observe, notice, listen. And it sounds simple. But when we don't realize how much baggage we come with us before we start, when we begin to realize that, so then we recognize the challenge of it as well. It becomes more of a challenge, but that's the starting point. So you see how far we can go when we're not careful with observing objectively, and how great is the obligation to be observing objectively. That is the beginning, ultimately, of growth in Avodas Hashem.
Now that we should try to observe objectively. How do we do that if we have all the baggage?
So I'll tell you this, something to shoot every time, almost every time. There are probably other examples. I can't think of a better one. Every time Rashiva, you have a problem. The problem is that yes, I have baggage and I have predispositions and I have negias and I have taivas and I have all kinds of things that can cloud my judgment. So we want to emphasize that so that I can be aware. But then the problem is, okay, so now you've brought me to a point of paralysis. I am hopeless and helpless and there's nothing I can do. So yeah, you're right. I should leave it with a response and with some hope. And the response is also in Parshas Vayigash. Yaakov Avinu was heading down to Mitzrayim to be reunited with Yosef, bring his whole family with him. So the pasuk on the way says he stopped. Vayizbach olos is bochim. So Medrash there comments, what was he doing? It's kind of a strange thing. It's strange that it happened. It's strange that the pasuk mentions it. You're in the middle of a very traumatic narrative. Yaakov being reunited with Yosef, the trip down to Mitzrayim. Vayizbach olos. Why is it there? Medrash says, Medrash Rabbi, that the Machlekes Amoraim, one of them says, Yaakov says to himself, Shemo lohut achagroni oni. Maybe I am enthused, running after the pleasure of my throat, like my father. In other words, my father Yitzchak favored Esau. Why? Kitzai befiv, because he had good food. He fed Yitzchak well, and that affected his judgment. So Yaakov says to himself, maybe I'm like my father. Just as my father's judgment was swayed by good food, maybe me also. We're kind of desperate. We hit hard times in Canaan. There's a worldwide famine. It affected us also. The first time we went down, we had plenty of storage. At this point, supplies are pretty depleted. Lots of food in Mitzrayim. Yeshever bin Mitzrayim. Great. So maybe I'm making a poor decision. My father Yitzchak didn't leave Canaan. There was a Rav, he was supposed to leave. Hashem told him, don't. Maybe I shouldn't leave either. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a tough one. Maybe the reason I am, my judgment was clouded. Right? And then he says, no, my father was, only had himself to care for. Me, I have the burden of Shivim Nofesh, of 70 souls are dependent on me for sustenance. I have a great responsibility and inadequate resources. Right? What's he doing? What is that back and forth? No new information. What he's doing is a self-evaluation in a very specific way. Right? No one helps us in the Hilchos Pesach. When you do a bedika, gotta be l'or haner. So what happens if I want to improve on it? And I want to take, instead of a ner, I'll take my Havdalah candle. Right? You can't use a ner for Havdalah. Havdalah, you use an avuka. You use a torch, a few wicks together. Right? So I'm going to improve on my bedika. I'm not going to use a ner, I'm going to use an avuka. So what's halacha? Do it again. Doesn't work. Can't use an avuka. Well, gee, why is that? Well, avuka makes a very big light. Well, that sounds good. I want a big light. No, you want a very precise light. You want to be able to get into the nooks and crannies and be able to check every place. When you have an avuka, you can't get in there so carefully. Right? When I say to myself, am I being a good guy or a bad guy? Am I doing the right stuff or the wrong stuff? Right? Somebody comes to me and says, I didn't understand the Gemara. What didn't you understand? Anything. It's going to be hard to address. I don't understand how this answer answers that question. Oh, something specific. Now I know what we're talking about. When I say, am I being a good guy or a bad guy? Well, that's so vague as to be almost meaningless. I don't know. It's not very clear. That's an avuka. When I'm looking at myself trying to determine whether I'm being straight, whether I'm being honest, or whether I'm being impacted by one of the various negiyas that could be affecting me, what you have to do is use a ner. Specifically, what is it that might be clouding my judgment right now? Where could I be going wrong? Everywhere. That's too hard to check. Where could I be going wrong? Well, this is something that involves food. Am I being affected by a drive for food now? This is something that involves kavod. Am I being affected by my ego right now? Once I pinpoint it, I have the ability to look at myself and be honest with it. Probably the fact that I'm aware enough to be pinpointing it already means that I have a degree of self-awareness and honesty. But a person has the capacity to know himself. Am I in fact being moved by that negative thing or not? If I look vaguely, again with the mashal, with an avuka, it's very easy to fool myself. I don't know what could be leading me astray. Yeah, it's all good, it's all good. But when I'm very pinpoint, I'm specific, I know what I'm looking for. I can recognize it within myself. I know at the end of the day, I'm the world expert on Hillel Wachsman. Nobody's an expert on Hillel Wachsman like I am. I have the most interest in fooling myself, and nobody else shares that interest. I'd say, Chover, he's not smarter than me, he doesn't know better than me. Yeah, but he doesn't share my negias from me. I want a good hamburger. He doesn't really care whether I have a good hamburger or not. He wants me to be happy, but he knows a good hamburger is not going to be good for me now. He doesn't share my negias, even if he's not wiser than me. But just as my friend, I have the ability, I'm the expert on me. I know me better than anybody else knows me. And I can know, is this something that is affecting me? I just have to look. The way to look is be specific and precise. Figure out what details, what negias can be coming into play in this specific area. Then I can look at myself in that specific area, and I'm able to know that. Everybody is. So that's the answer. That's the defense. I don't need to be paralyzed. I don't need to be helpless and hopeless. I have to be aware that there are tendencies. Right? My car has a tendency to roll backward at a light. What does that mean? Never drive. It means be aware of that. Keep your foot on the brake when you're stuck on a downhill on a light. There are steps to be taken. Take the steps. And this is the best, the most obvious step, which is pinpoint, look what the negative is. That affecting me, yes or no?
You have to push yourself to take that position, to look that way.
Okay, well, again,
that's
the whole first four prakim or whatever, after Paragal. The whole next four prakim is a sharm. Is that zihir? That's what zihiras means. Yeah. My tendency is to not think about it and just do stuff. Don't do anything without thinking about it first. That doesn't mean spend 20 minutes before I put the next bite of food in my mouth. But be aware. Be aware of your environment. I mean, all the cops will tell you that's smart when you're walking in a tough neighborhood also. Be aware. That doesn't mean be a nervous wreck. Be aware. There's somebody walking behind you. You can hear him. You can get a sense, is he running, is he walking, where is he? But be aware. Same thing here. Be aware. Don't be neurotic. Don't be hopelessly tense. Be aware.
So Paro wasn't, when he said that statement to Moshe Rabbeinu, he wasn't open at all to why he was saying what he was saying. He just had his inclinations of what was in his interest, and not for the truth.
The fact that it takes four prakim to spell out the very simple concept, you could say in one sentence, be aware. Obviously, there's strong forces at play to ensure that we don't be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to slip into just coasting mode, which is where a lot of people live their lives. And coasting mode, first and foremost, is don't be aware. So I always tell guys in yeshiva, the biggest industry in the world is today?
What?
The biggest industry in the world today? You would probably say oil or real estate. I don't think so. I can't prove it. I don't have the numbers. I haven't done market research. But it's a much more all-encompassing industry. But the industry is distraction. That includes all the arts and all the sports and all the TV and all the computer games and all the movies, all the Hollywood and all it's all distraction. I don't have a goal and I don't have purpose. I mean, why am I here? Why am I doing anything? So I don't like to think about those things. Death. Nobody likes to think about death. I mean, I used to say, the young guys, they're not part of the death club, right? I never took membership for that one. We don't like to think about it. It's unpleasant. You can talk to your kids about it also. Don't be too in your face. Nothing like a good time limit. Not for the last minute. Nothing would get done. It's good to have all these things. They're just we're not comfortable. I don't like to think about it. Well, I don't have a healthy perspective. I don't have a way of thinking about it that's not going to radically alter how I live my life. And that's a problem because I don't want to radically alter the way I live my life. I kind of like my life the way it is, except that I'm so miserable that I have to distract myself all the time. But as long as I don't think about that, I'll be fine. Funny world. That's how it is.
it's very good. Okay. So maybe give us a bracha. My Rabbi used to say that when the moment comes and something's happening, you give a bracha.
I'll tell you, all the years I went by the yeshiva for, I was in close proximity for about 12 years. I was a Talmud for years before that, indirectly, and after that, I was in his close proximity for 12 years. He was not a big giving out brachas guy. And then years later, I moved there, I came back, and I saw him giving out brachas on Yom Kippur Small. So I asked the secretary, what's going on? So he said that Yeshiva decided, got so many people asking for brachas, he figured it's probably because he's a kohen miyuchas. Yeshiva had a star yuchsin back to the shach, and it was known that the shach had a star yuchsin back to Aaron Kohen. He was a kohen miyuchas, that's probably why. He's like, I'm not able to deny people a bracha of a kohen miyuchas. So then he did. I'm not miyuchas, I'm not a kohen, so I'm good. Bracha v'atzlocha.